All right, good morning. I'm impressed. That's usually not that good of a response. You guys feel bad for me because I'm not up here often. Like Bryce said, I'm Ryan. I'm a production director here. I'm usually in the back pushing buttons with a lot of my favorite people or dreaming up stage designs like this. This took 3 days. We did all this in 3 days with an amazing group of volunteers. I'm pretty biased, but I think it's amazing. Anybody else? I really enjoy this stuff, and I'm passionate, and I love all things technology, but my biggest love and passion comes with these three. I figured I should just go ahead and get the cute picture out of the way early. But this is the most important thing in my life. Being a dad to them and having a healthy family is something that I'm really passionate about. And when it comes to what I do here, filling this church with healthy families is way more important to me. And this is so important because I love what I do, but it's way more important to me than lots of lights and cool LED walls and graphics and loud music and all that other stuff. I believe that if we want to make the world fall in love with who God is, it happens through healthy relationships and healthy families. So this is week 3 of a series called Parenting, Getting It Right. This series and what we've been talking about is from the book Parenting, Getting It Right. I'm supposed to have it with me and hold it up at this point, but I don't have it with me, so you'll have to buy the book to see what it looks like, all right? If you didn't see the first 2 weeks, it's really imperative that you go back and watch them or listen to them. You can check out the podcast, watch them online, or even just read the book. Week 1, Joel talked about the goal of parenting. It's when our children want to spend time with us and with each other when they no longer have to. This is our North Star and what we want as parents and what we're striving for. This is a parenting goal, and Joel talked about this, which is different than a goal for our children or qualities that we hope that they possess one day. Then week 2, Carmen talked about your role. She talked about how we go through these different stages of parenting and how it's imperative to understand the way that our children are changing and the changing role that we play as parents through that process. If you didn't see this, this graphic alone is monumental for understanding what our children are going through and some of the roles we play. And Carmen talked all about that. Before getting into week 3, who was here? Show of hands if you were here a couple months ago when I announced Dad Camp. Let me see it. Thank you. I like that. I'm happy to share that we had 60 dads and more than 60 kids sign up within the first few hours, and we are totally sold out for our first year of Dad Camp. It's really exciting. If you missed it, Dad Camp is an amazing weekend where dads take their 1st through 5th grade children, and they stay in like a camp-like setting, and they stay for the weekend. The purpose of Dad Camp is to equip, inspire, and encourage dads to be the best dads that they can be. It's a really amazing weekend. And the real secret sauce of it, and what I've come to realize over this series and through reading this book, is that what makes it really special, the thing that really matters, is the 2 days that dads get to spend with their kids. That is priceless. And they get to invest in that relationship and bond with them in a way that a lot of dads have never done before. And this kind of weekend has the power to foster and build these friendships and relationships. So this is our first year doing Dad Camp, okay? And right now we only offer it for dads and elementary school kids. We hope that changes in the future, but we're going 1 year at a time here. But there are some dad camps out in Indiana where it originated, where dads can take their middle schoolers or their high school children. And I announced that when I was up here talking about our dad camp that we're gonna do. And then last week, actually, I had a dad come up to me to share with me that he's taking his daughter, his high school daughter, to a camp in Indiana. I was shocked. It literally made me so proud and so excited for this dad. This is what it's all about. I know this dad and daughter are going to bond at this camp and come back closer than they were before. I know this dad is parenting with the future in mind and that he's making an investment in his relationship. Hold on, I got a mail notification. I should have my internet off. That he is parenting with the future in mind and making an investment in their relationship that'll pay off for a really long time to come. And I don't share this to shame everybody else for not doing this. That's not the point. I share it to make the point that relationship is everything when it comes to our kids, and this is one really amazing way to do it. Today, I want to talk about the number one thing that will prevent every parent from moving in this direction relationally. This is something with such a strong influence and impact that it single-handedly has the ability to completely derail any parent from having a healthy relationship with their child. This is a true force to be reckoned with. And it is us. It's me. It's you. It's the parents. It's our souls. And today I want to share that to reach our parenting goals, you have to focus on your soul. I believe this is a pivotal factor in having and maintaining the type of relationship that Andy and Sandra share in this book about parenting. And so when I say soul, here's what I mean. It's all of who you are. It's your mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical self. It's all of you. These are all important, and none of them are mutually exclusive. I actually believe that these are all spiritual. And then the spiritual one is like extra spiritual, if you know what I mean. But these aren't like totally independent things. I believe that our relationship with God and the spiritual aspect affects all of those, and all of those affect our spiritual aspect and our relationship with God. When it comes to looking at the future, though, and imagining a beautiful friendship and mutually enjoyable relationship with our kids, we have to understand that how we get there has more to do with us and our soul than it does with our kids and the decisions that they make. And so before digging into our souls, I want to share a little bit about my parenting journey. To be honest, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I had no idea of the pure joy and pride over something as little as seeing my girl's first school photo. I showed everybody I worked with. I was caught off guard by how much I liked them. Or the heartwarming feeling of being welcomed home by my 3 girls when I walk in the door and, they run up to you and jump in your arms and they act like you've been gone for months and you went to the grocery store. Our dog used to give me this feeling and she's taking a back seat. We love her. Her name's Kobe. She's sweet. Or just as surprising, the amount of uncontrollable rage that I feel at 7:30 p.m. when I've asked my children to brush their teeth for the literal 14th time. And when they finally do, they use half a tube of toothpaste. They somehow get it all over the toilet and countertop. They brush for at most 10 seconds. I mean, it's like, that's generous. It's like they just swoosh it around and then they spit it out all over the countertop, all over the faucet. They get a little bit in the sink and then they leave their toothbrush in the middle of the hallway on the floor. It's like I don't think we give them enough credit. It's like they do every single thing wrong just to test me. That's how I feel sometimes. And a lot of you parents have been there. Some of you have probably blocked it out because it's too painful. But that's the season of life that I'm in right now. On the topic of children unleashing the rage in us, let's talk a little bit more about our souls. And here's an analogy for our souls that I think is helpful. Our souls are kind of like this bicycle tire. My sister Krista lent me this bicycle 5 years ago, and it's been hanging in my garage ever since. It's a girl's bicycle, but I borrowed it so I could ride it. And my kids wanted me to ride bikes with them last week, and I got it out and immediately noticed that the tire was flat. And so I put a little air in it. We pump it up. We got the thing because when I got the bike, and I had to get a bike tire, and it was a whole situation. And got back on it, and it was immediately flat again. And this isn't like a little flat. This is like, this is like a really, I don't know if you can see that. It shouldn't do that. It should be a little more sturdy than that. And it doesn't matter how much air I put into this tire. Doesn't matter how many times I try to inflate it. The tire has a hole in it, okay? The root of the issue isn't that this tire is flat. The root of the issue is that there's a hole in it. And it doesn't matter what I do. And until I fix that hole, this bike cannot take me to where I go. I mean, maybe. I thought about trying to ride this, but first of all, it's a girl's bike and it doesn't fit. And I don't want to fall off the stage and it's flat. And you know. But like with flat tires, this bike doesn't take us to where we want to go. And in the same way, our souls take us where we want to go relationally. And it's so easy to focus on the fact that something's wrong with it, but until we get to the root of what's going on in our souls, we'll never be able to get to the relationship the way that we want to. And it's not all or nothing. For some people, the tires are so flat that you've given up on the relationship or you have no hope left. And for some people, you're just slowly leaking air and you're just trudging along and it's hard to understand what's going on and what's wrong. And you got to stop all the time and fill up your tires, or every time you get your bike out, you got to fill it up again. It's not all or nothing, but the root of the issue, it's our souls. And our souls is what's going to allow us to get to the relationship that we want to have with our kids. So let's talk about emotional health. A very hard truth that I've come to realize over the past few years is that I'm responsible for my emotions, all right? The first time I really learned this was in my marriage. If you've ever been married, you know that it can be a whirlwind of emotions, both negative and positive. A whirlwind. It's like riding a roller coaster, all right? And early on in my marriage, we had some struggles. My wife and I are really open about that. We had a difficult first few years. We had a lot of situational stress, a lot of relational stress. And what I realized is that my wife is not responsible for how I'm feeling. Even if she did, hypothetically, do something that caused a stressful situation, she would hypothetically be responsible for her decisions and her actions or hurtful words. But those are my emotions, and those are my reactions, and how I deal with those is my responsibility. And I can't control her, and I can't control the situation, and I can't always control the conversation, but I can always control my reaction and my response and how I deal with my emotions. I'd say that parenting, maybe even more than marriage, has exposed some not so attractive areas of myself that I was, for the most part, completely unaware of. On page 135 in this book, and I quote, "Yell only in case of emergency." He goes on, "If you reserve yelling for when danger is involved, yelling will make the appropriate impression. When yelling is the norm, it won't. Before long, it's just noise." There have been moments, especially before reading this book, where if you stopped by my house, you'd think the entire family was in immediate danger based on the amount of yelling going on. Most likely, this would be before bedtime. We have a toddler, a 2-year-old, and then 2 preschoolers. And my wife and I, bedtime is it's so bad, you guys. It's so bad. I need to read a book just about bedtime. My wife and I, we have to trade off every other night with the preschoolers. They share a bedroom. So not only do they fight all day, but then they get in bed and they fight, and they're tired. And so we have to trade off because sometimes it's a very unenjoyable process. And it's a long process. And then sometimes it feels like we're like WWF and like one of us is in there getting pummeled, and then you have to like tag team the other one, and they come swooping in to save the day. I've had my fair share of yelling. I'm not here to throw any stones. And he goes on, "A raised voice should communicate danger, not anger. If there is no danger, do not raise your voice. If you don't think you can talk to your children without raising your voice, don't talk to your children. They won't hear. They will fear. They will fight, flee, or freeze. What they can't do, is listen. And when it dawns on you that they aren't listening, you'll be tempted to ask, 'Are you listening to me?' And they will nod, but they aren't listening. You've made it impossible for them to listen. They will hear you, but they won't hear what you're saying. What they will hear is that you are angry and that they are in danger." All right, so this is just Andy, right? Like Andy is not a scientist. He's not a psychologist. He's not a psychiatrist. He's not a children's counselor, right? Like this is just like one really awesome guy's opinion. We'll take it with a grain of salt. Well, according to a University of Connecticut study, yelling, screaming, and threatening children to get them to start or stop a behavior is ineffective and increases risk that children will develop emotional and behavioral problems. And children in homes where parents regularly raise their voice tend to have lower self-esteem and higher rates of depression. This is one of dozens of studies that you can find about the effects of yelling on children. And it widely supports what Andy is trying to communicate here. So what if the reason we raise our voice has more to do with releasing our frustration than it does with constructively influencing how our kids behave? What if, rather than being a tool for teaching our kids how to make good choices, yelling fuels our desire as parents to feel like we are in control? What if our lack of volume control is a window into something unhealthy going on in us, our souls? What if our lack of volume control is the flat tire, and underneath there's a hole somewhere? It's an indicator to something going on inside of us. And listen, we talked about this with our staff. Somebody brought up a really great question, and I don't want to debate about whether you should really never yell at your children. You could make the argument, John made the argument, that Jesus might have been flipping when he was in the temple, flipping over tables, chasing people out, whipping. He was probably, you can make the argument that he was probably yelling at them. He was probably a little riled up. The point is not about yelling, but I'll say this: yelling should not be normal. Consistently raising your voice does not accomplish what we think it does, and so it should probably be used very sparingly. And this is really difficult, trust me, I know. I've always prided myself on my cool and calm approach to life. Any Enneagram fans out there? Anybody? It's a really cool tool, tells you all about yourself. You guys are all uninformed. You need to go look it up and understand yourself better. I'm a type 9 on it. Our whole staff does it. I'm a peacemaker. We got a peacemaker? Okay, we got a 6. I'm considered a peacemaker. My general mission in life is to have a harmonious, intention-free life. Is that really too much to ask for? You know what I mean? Can we all just get along? And then a way a 9 typically deals with anger is by denying it and being completely out of touch with it, by not even acknowledging that it exists. Let me tell you, having toddlers that feel the need to challenge my role as their parent and my authority as their parent every single step of the way has helped me. I'm not going to say it's helped me, but it's brought out this thing that I try really hard to not acknowledge and to keep inside. But here's the thing, my anger is not my kid's fault. I get tired, I get frustrated, I get annoyed, but when that comes out as anger, and my children receive it in an in-the-moment, unfiltered, and usually over-the-top way, I'm hurting the relationship that I have with them now and the relationship that I hope to have with them in the future. When it comes to parenting with the relationship in mind and trying to get it right, it has more to do with our soul than it does with our kids. Kids will be kids. They will be kids. But how we respond to them and our ability to process difficult emotions in a healthy way will dictate our ability to maintain a healthy relationship with them. This is about our soul. Our ability to control our tone and our volume is an indicator that something's going on. And maybe there's a hole that needs to be fixed. As children get older, we move from the frustrations of the early years of the discipline stage that was on that chart back there, to the balancing act of wanting our kids to share with us, but not freaking out when they do. And he goes on to pose that maybe your high-volume communication style flows from your own fears. Perhaps you're afraid your children will make the same mistake you did. You don't want your children to end up there. That's understandable to you, to me, but your children won't understand that until later, when the damage has already been done. Don't allow your past failures to inform your tone and posture. The best way to ensure your kids repeat the same mistakes you made is to react as if they are already making the same mistakes you made. When we overreact, Andy goes on, our kids don't feel safe. Overreact to what you see, and before long, you may not see it anymore. Not because anything has changed, but because your children have learned that it's not safe to let you see it. When I first joined this church and started coming around, Carmen Smith somehow wrangled me into leading a group of sixth grade boys for our middle school night. And I became their small group leader, and it was a huge commitment for me. It was the biggest thing I think I'd ever committed. I was like, you want me to do this for a whole year? I ended up doing it until they graduated, so I stuck with these boys for 7 years, and a lot of them came and went, and some of them stayed for longer than others, and some of them are here today. There's one of them. And my time with these boys, one thing that would happen is they would share things with me. And I was shocked with some of the things these kids would share with me. And not because I couldn't believe that they would think something or do something so, I don't know how to gracefully say it, stupid. You know, I was a 16-year-old once. I had an underdeveloped frontal cortex. You know, your brain is literally mush, like well into your 20s if you're a boy. And my grandpa would always say, what do you have, mush for brains? And yeah, you like scientifically do have mush for brains. So I've made my fair share of poor choices. So the shocking part wasn't that they did it. The shocking part was that they told me about it. I never had a relationship with somebody like that when I was growing up, that I shared some of those thoughts and feelings and decisions that I made. You know, they trusted me enough to share those things with me. And don't get me wrong, there were times where it took everything inside of me not to freak out and ask them in a very condescending tone how they could possibly make such a stupid decision when everyone else in the whole entire world would have said that's not a good choice. But I didn't. And I just listened and maybe asked a few questions. And my lack of freaking out didn't mean I approved. I spent years with these kids. Most of them knew what I thought and what I believed and how I felt about a lot of different things before they would tell me. A lack of freaking out also doesn't mean that there can't be another conversation, or that at the appropriate time there can't be a little coaching or advice given, or that there might not even be consequences for those choices. It simply means that you stay seated in your parenting seat and maintain your composure. The fastest way to get your kid to shut down, whether they're 5 or 55, is to overreact or freak out when they tell you something. And Carmen talked about this last week. They won't change their behavior. They will just work harder to make sure that you don't find out. How we respond says more about us than it does our kids. We cannot control them. As hard as we try, we cannot make them do what we want. At least not past, like, I've got a 5-year-old, so I mean that I feel like that ship sailed 2 years ago. But I can always control my reaction and my response. And I always have the option and the decision of how I'm going to manage my emotions. The way we respond to our kids when they share something that we're not thrilled about is a window into the health of our soul. It's not just anger that's the issue. I've been talking about anger. It's not just anger. If you're consistently harsh or critical or intense or anything other than calm, you immediately become somebody who's not safe. And this doesn't happen overnight, but your children learn. Because chances are these aren't isolated, individual, remote events. Chances are this is a pattern because it's inside of us. It's part of who we are. But the thing is, you cannot fake that calm posture, at least not for long. You have to do some soul searching and figure out why. Why do you react the way that you do? Why do we freak out? Why do we lose our temper? Why is it so difficult to parent? And remember, this isn't just about the relationship we have with them now, but the one that we also hope to have with them in the future. When it comes to raising children who want to spend time with you and their siblings when they no longer have to, our emotional health as parents will arguably be the number one factor in how that turns out. But like I said, this isn't just about anger. And just to be clear, anger is not good or bad. I'm not saying it's bad to be angry or that you should feel guilty about your anger. But handled in the wrong way, it becomes like a boiling cup of coffee that we spill on everyone around us. There's something fascinating that I learned, in this, getting ready for this about anger, and it's that anger is what's called it's called a secondary emotion. And we use anger to protect ourselves from other vulnerable emotions that can be much more difficult to understand and express. We almost always feel something before we feel angry. And these are called primary feelings. And these can be feelings of disrespect. Have you ever been disrespected by their child? Hey, will you do this? No, I hate you. You're the worst dad in the world. Frustrated, scared, offended, trapped, humiliated. Ever take your kids to a restaurant? We don't. There are so many other feelings that we only know how to express as anger. And so what's your baggage? What kind of fear, shame, anxiety, anger, stress do you carry around from your past or your job or something else that has nothing to do with your relationship with your kids? Andy shares angry moms and dad reap a crop they swear they did not sow. They swear their spouse or ex-spouse sowed it. They assume they're sowing fine, upstanding, disciplined, well-behaved citizens who will make daddy proud. Angry parents trade influence for compliance. We trade influence for compliance. When we lose control, and I don't mean like let's shift, like not when we lose control of our anger, but when we lose control of the situation, when our kids don't do what we want them to do, when we can't control them, and we lose our cool, we freak out on them, we get angry, we get critical, we get judgmental, we can't possibly understand what they're thinking, we lose the influence to try to go for compliance. And what's really hard about that is you eventually lose the compliance because they'll just disengage, back away, stop sharing. There's so many great strategies and techniques when it comes to dealing with the hard emotions that sabotage our ability to parent with the relationship in mind. My advice is very simple. Get counseling. If you didn't need it before you had kids, you probably need it now. My wife and I have both done a lot of counseling over the years, both individual and marriage counseling. And this has been a game changer for me to pursue emotional health in my life. We think counseling is actually such a huge topic that we're getting ready to do a whole series about it in just a few weeks. I encourage you all to be present for that. You have nothing but something to gain from this. Oh, all right, where are we at? Everything we are, healthy and unhealthy, the good and the bad, will become a part of our relationship with our child. And that's why focusing on our souls is so important. Can everyone in this room just take a moment and acknowledge our imperfections? Is there anyone in here who has it all figured out? Anyone in here who is happy and content with every single relationship in your life? Anyone in here that's completely at peace with themselves and doesn't feel like they need to change or grow or mature at all? It's critical for parents at every stage of parenting, and really just everybody in general, to have a healthy acknowledgement and understanding that they are not perfect. James tells us this. He says, "For we all stumble in many ways. And if anyone does not stumble in what he says, he is a perfect man, able to also bridle his whole body." Basically, we all mess up. And if you don't, then you must be in perfect control at all times. I sense a little sarcasm in that. Aim for perfection. We aim for perfection, but we understand that on this side of eternity, it is not achievable. Parenting in a way that your kids want to spend time with you and with each other and with their siblings when they no longer have to. It's not about our kids. It's about us. The beautiful thing about this idea is that it's never too late. One of my favorite concepts that they talk about in this parenting book is the idea that later lasts longer. Carmen talked about these seasons, and it means the first 3 seasons, they're temporary. Sandra shares in this book, she says, the days are long and the years are short. Sometimes I sing that to myself like a motto so I don't freak out on my children. The years are short, the years are short, the years are short. Because you get in these stages and it's hard to see the bigger picture. We only discipline and teach and coach our kids for so long. The goal becomes that when they are grown and gone, we're able to maintain a beautiful friendship with them for significantly longer than they were in those other seasons. And this is why parenting with relationship in mind and a finish line of a healthy, mutually enjoyable relationship is such a beautiful concept. The friendship stage is actually where we have the ability to end up spending the majority of our time. But that's really difficult to see day to day. So there's many people living in this grown and gone stage. You're already in the end of that scale, and you're filled with deep shame and regret about the way you raised your kids or the current state of your relationship. My encouragement to you is this: it's that later really does last longer. If you feel you made some mistakes or even a lot of mistakes, I believe there's always a chance for healing and restoration. You'll always be your child's mother or father, and your words will always carry a significant amount of weight. It's never too late to move towards healing and make sure your side of the relational drawbridge is down. There's a proverb, it's not from the Bible, but it's that the best time to plant a tree, anybody ever heard this? Best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The next best time is always right now. If you feel like you missed it, it's not too late. There's another group of parents in this room, and these are the parents who are completely unaware of the pain that they've caused their kids. I think this mainly happens for two reasons. You're either too terrified to acknowledge that your actions hurt those you love the most, or you justify it by thinking everything you did, you're just trying to do the best you could or watch out for your kids. Unfortunately, just because we don't mean to hurt our kids doesn't mean they don't get hurt. And look, I have so much grace for parents now that I have kids of my own. And there's so much about parenting that so many parents never get to learn until it's too late. And that's exactly why we're doing this series. My advice for parents who don't have the kind of relationship with their kids that they desire is to start with you. Pursuing healing in a relationship will happen as you pursue emotional health. Pursuing healing in a relationship you have with your child will happen as you move towards emotional health. Start with the assumption that there were things that you did that hurt the relationship. And this assumption is not unique to you. Every parent should be making this assumption. You can't let your focus be on what your kids did or didn't do, or based on their behavior or their decisions. Let's think for a minute about our Father in heaven. You know, the Lord's Prayer, it's fascinating that it starts with our Father in heaven. There's so many names for God: King, Lord, Ruler, Prince. But Jesus starts with our Father in heaven. He is always the one who moves towards us first. In the midst of our disobedience, foolish decisions, blatantly turning our back on him, or even just subtly setting him on the sidelines like he's not important, he is always moving towards us, his children. His response never changes. And this is what the parent seat is supposed to look like. He's the model for how to love our children. Ask God to change your heart, to fix what's in you for the way that you see your child. And he says, don't pray for your child's soul, at least not yet. Pray for yours. The relationship that we want with our kids has more to do with us than it does them. I want to spend a few more minutes before wrapping up and talk a little bit more about the spiritual side of our soul, our relationship with God. And I think this is really important that we understand that, like I said earlier, all those other aspects of our soul, they're all intertwined. And I believe that they're all spiritual. Moving towards emotional health, I believe, is a spiritual thing. Taking care of our bodies, I believe that can be spiritual. Our mental health, it's spiritual. But there are some unique aspects of each one as it relates to parenting. Joel talked a little bit in week 1 about our kids' faith and the influence that we either do or don't have over it. The kind of faith we have as parents will not only affect the relationship that we have with our kids, but the relationship that our kids have with God. One of the biggest problems with our faith as parents, as Andy describes it, is when we have what he calls a heaven one day faith. And this is the kind of faith where you go to church, you say your prayers, you try to do the right thing so that one day you can go to the good place instead of the bad place. And here's the thing, if this is our faith as parents, there's a good chance our children will not stick around for it. Jesus says this in John. He says, "A new command I give you, love one another as I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another." Jesus wants us to have a faith marked by his love. The most impactful thing we can do for our kids is for them to see the way we as followers of Christ love people. It's the way we talk about our neighbors and coworkers and that guy that rubs you like sandpaper every time you have a conversation with him. It's the way we talk about those people in front of our children. It's the way we react when somebody cuts us off. It's the way we interact with a barista or server when they jack up our order or take forever. I struggle with this. I was a server. Ask my wife. She's always like, "Stop." I'm like, okay, I won't say it. It's the way we practice generosity with our time and money. You know, you can go out there and get one of these compassion cards and sponsor a child because you can, you think it's the right thing to do, or you want to teach your kids a lesson. Or you can go and do it because you say, "I'm going to trust God with my heart. I'm going to trust God with my finances. I'm going to trust that God is going to provide for me and that he's blessed me and given so much and that I can give away what he's given me because I know that he'll always take care of me." Our kids will know the difference. I'll never forget Carmen's dad, Mark Malin, shared a story of when they were trying to raise money to build a church for their home. They were portable and they were trying to build a new building. And he was the pastor at the time. And he felt called by God to sell his beloved classic car and give the money towards this building. I mean, can you imagine the impact that had on his kids? Not just him talking about what he believes, but making a huge step in his life towards that and showing them that he actually does trust God and that he believes in something that's so much bigger than them and so much bigger than his car and what they're doing. He believes in something that'll last for eternity. When it comes to our faith, it's not what's taught, it's what's caught. Our kids will see the way that we treat and love or don't love everyone that we encounter. By the time our kids are grown and gone, they will know how or if our faith has a real effect on our life, or if it's just some kind of an insurance policy for life after death. Our faith isn't just important because it shapes our kids' faith. It's also important because it shapes us first. To be the kind of parent that God desires us to be, the focus must be on us. No matter if you haven't started yet, where your kids are grown and gone, healthy parents look inside. If you don't believe that you're deeply loved by God, this is so important. If you don't believe that you are deeply loved and cherished by God, and I mean like not just, the Bible verses, but like if you don't feel that in your soul, how do you expect to teach your kids that that's true about them? How do you teach your kids that their body is beautiful and their uniqueness is special if you don't believe it about yourself? How do you teach your kids to have healthy boundaries with the opposite sex, food, or social media if you don't have it yourself? You can't. But don't worry. This is not a series about how to be a perfect parent or raise perfect kids. And honestly, what your kids need more than you being perfect is you being humble. All this church stuff, this all has one purpose. What we're doing here tonight or this morning, reading your Bible, all the theology classes we do, prayer, worship, it all leads to one thing: being transformed to look more like Jesus. That's the point of what we do, to be made new and transformed into the likeness of Christ. And look, this is hard. This is the work. It's the transformation, but it means we first have to acknowledge that we need to change, that there's something going on in our soul, and unless we fix it, we're not going to get to where we want to go. That parts of us might actually need to die. My sister and I, we hang out on Fridays sometimes because my wife works and I've got the kids and she's got the kids. And last week we went to the zoo with all 7 of our kids, all of them under, 6. I don't know how old Anderson is. Feels like we take the zoo to the zoo, And we were talking about this book and this series, and I was sharing with her some of the stuff that I'd be sharing and how it's really difficult as a parent to focus on ourselves instead of our children's behavior. And then the other day, she shared something on Instagram that I asked if I could share this morning. And she said this. She said, it's a small, I'll read it to you. She said, you know how people say that when you pray for patience, God doesn't give you patience? I've heard that before. Well, today, this very morning, I prayed that the Holy Spirit would help me love and disciple my kids. I prayed that before freaking out and responding to them, I could give them grace and truth. I think I wrote it down wrong. I prayed that I would pause before freaking out and respond to them with grace and truth, not anger or rage. Sounds like an opportunity. Well, the Lord provides. And then she posted this. This morning, the boys took turns turning on the bidet and shooting water at the walls. The Lord provides. My children flooded our bathroom on the second floor with the bidet a few months ago. I had a bunch of holes in my ceiling now. Later, they were in the bathroom again, and someone shut the bathroom door so hard that it shattered everywhere. So that is a broken glass door brought to you by children that we love so much. The Lord provides. You know, what else is there to do besides laugh at this? And here's my point. Transforming is hard. My sister is an amazing mother. And she is actively trying to be something new. And that's even more amazing. And that's what this parenting thing is all about, being transformed. Lacking the likeness of Christ is what your parenting, it's what my parenting lacks the most. We lack joy and peace and patience and kindness and gentleness and self-control. To be transformed into Christ is to be transformed into these things. As we move closer to God, we cannot help but for these things to become more and more a part of who we are. It's the result of a real relationship with God. In the same way that our goal is to have healthy relationships with our kids, God wants nothing more than to have one with us. And the more we believe and understand how deeply loved we are by God, the more we can love our kids that same way. But if we think that the way God loves us and the way he wants to be a part of our life is dependent on our behavior, our success, or doing more good than bad, then I can almost guarantee you that your kids will feel the same about their relationship with you. Your kids need to know that you're with them. Your kids need a relationship with you where they can feel loved and accepted, even when they're little monsters, break and shower doors, rebellious teenagers, young adults who think they have it all figured out, or full-blown adults making decisions that you wholeheartedly disagree with. Your kids need and want a relationship with you that both of you enjoy. So let's not get caught up in how to do it all right and be everything we need to be at every moment. As parents, let's first focus on our own emotional and relational health and our faith first. Everyone knows that on a plane, you put your own mask on before you put on your kids. We have to focus on our souls first. I'll wrap up, and I just want to share a story. You know, my whole life, I've never really had much of a vision for myself. Career goals, health goals, financial goals. But one thing I always knew is I wanted to be a father. I've always known it. I've always desired it. But the thing is, I didn't really have a vision past being a father. And before reading this book, I never considered what my goal as a parent was supposed to be. I guess I just assumed that you do the best you can. You know, teach them to love God, teach them to be kind to people, at the very least not to be little jerks. But for the past few months since reading this book, I can honestly say that for the first time ever, I don't just have a vision to have kids. I have a vision for what I want my relationship to look like with them. I have a vision that they want to spend time with my wife and I when they no longer have to. I feel like I truly have a North Star as a parent that keeps me moving in the right direction despite what kind of day my kids are having. You know, there's a really good chance that one day I'm going to be walking all three of these girls down the aisle. That feels really far away, but I know it'll be here in the blink of an eye. And as I walk these girls down the aisle and I hand them off to somebody who will in a lot of ways be taking my place, what kind of relationship do I want to have with them? Will they feel like I really know them, accept them, love them, have their back no matter where they go or what they do or who they choose to be. I genuinely hope that if someone were to ask them, what do you love most about your dad? They'd be able to say something about our friendship. Because as I walk them down that aisle, I will no longer be the most important man in their life. And if I don't have a friendship with them, what am I left with? And I don't believe this will happen just because I want it to. I believe this will happen because the decisions I'm making today will slowly lead me there one day at a time. I believe that it will happen because I want to do the hard work of working on my soul. And I refuse to let me be the thing that stands in the way of the relationship that I hope to have with my kids someday. My heart for everyone in this room is that you would get out of your own way as well. Don't let you be the thing between you and them. Search your soul. Do everything you can to be healthy emotionally and do everything you can to be transformed into the likeness of Christ. So what's your vision for your relationship with your kids? Not how you hope they turn out, but how you hope your relationship turns out. Hopefully this series and this book can help you envision that and move towards it with a new kind of clarity. No matter where you are, and I mean this, no matter where you are, I believe that you can move towards this. And he says, parent with the relationship in mind. Parent in such a way that your kids will want to be with you and with each other when they no longer have to be. If relationship is everything, we really do have a lot of work to do on us. Let me take a minute and I want to pray for you guys and me. Jeez. God, help us to know how loved we are by you. How deeply loved we are as your children. Help us to start there, that you adore us, that you would do anything to be with us. That no matter what's going on in our world, you want to be there. Your intent is to not change us and control us. Your intent is to be close with us, God. I pray that that would be a part of who we are. And from that belief and that understanding, that we could parent the way that you parent us. That we could be the kind of parents that you desire for us to be, God. And we sit here this morning and we acknowledge that we need your help. That there are parts of our souls that need to grow and change, and that we want to do that, God. Help us to continually move towards our kids. And help us not to forget how much you love us. Amen. All right. We have one more week of parenting left, and next week is going to be a panel. It's going to be me and Carmen and Joel. And we know this is a lot. We know this is like the whole topic is just a lot. Even if you're not a parent, I'm sure this is bringing up so many questions about your parents or about what you want in the future. And what about this and empty nesters and the grown and gone stage. And every situation is unique and different. And we understand that. And so we want to talk about what you guys want to talk about. We want to address the questions that you guys have and what you guys are going through. So take out your phone. Just do me a favor. Just take out your phone. I know this is like a weird, like a silly churchy thing to do. Just take it out and just take a picture of this. It'll take you to a website. You don't have to put any information in. No information. Tell us if you like it. Tell us if you agree with it. Tell us what you disagree with. You're not going to hurt anybody's feelings. I didn't write the book. I'm just up here to communicate it. But we want to talk about what you guys want to talk about. So please take a minute, write a paragraph, write a paper, write a sentence, I don't care, and just tell us what you think and what you want to hear more about. You guys, I'm honored to be able to stand up here and share this with you. I believe so much in this church, and we have so many young families, and it matters so much. And so thank you guys for the privilege of sharing my heart with you and sharing some of what's in this book. Thanks, guys.
Hey, everyone. We are so glad that you hung out with us today. We would love to connect with you. We'd love to pray for you. We'd love to hear from you. So please text hi to the number on the screen, and we can't wait to see you soon.